How can you improve your forehand the fastest? Well, to improve your forehand really fast, there's 3 ways. 1, you can hit a large volume of balls every day. You can do this by starting maybe with 100, 500, 1,000, or 3,000. There's some pros that even do 5,000, 3,000 forehands per day to have that perfect forehand and to be able to hit it nice and smooth and not even have to think about it. How do you go about accomplishing this? Well, you can have yourself just self-feed the ball, bounce and hit the ball, just taking a bounce and swinging and aiming at a target. You can have your coach toss you the ball and hitting those same 500, 1,000, or 3,000 balls, or you can hit it with somebody else, just rallying with somebody else trying to get to that number. And the last way you can do it is simply going to a wall and trying to hit as many balls as you can. Another way to really help your forehand advance quickly is by visualizing. If every day you visualize on how you should be hitting your perfect forehand, before you practice, after you practice, during your practice, that'll really help you improve your forehand. Another great way to improve your forehand really fast is by practicing speed drills. What are speed drills? Well, basically speed drills are drills in which the ball is fed at you non-stop, so you have no break. You're just finishing your swing every time and moving your feet. What that's going to do is it's going to help you memorize your swing, and it's going to help you become efficient because you won't have any time for any additional twitches in your swing or glitches or wrinkles, as they say. You're going to only be able to start short, follow through, start short, follow through, and you're going to be able to set up quickly. You're going to have to keep your feet on the ground every time you do that. Okay, now we're going to talk about acceleration. To generate the most acceleration, you want to do 2 things. You want to have a loose arm, loose wrist, and you want to make sure you set up your feet in a position that allows you to turn your feet and will allow your arm to swing through as you make impact. If, for example, when you're out of position or your feet, one foot is in the air on impact, it's harder to generate acceleration because you're off balance, so you sacrifice speed and power for balance. The only way to be balanced is by stopping your hands and finding a position in the air that's going to keep you balanced, which is going to be something like this. But here, you're not following through. Turning over doesn't feel natural for balance. So you want to make sure that when you get there, you want to make sure your feet are planted and your hand is nice and relaxed. Now, what is acceleration? Well, acceleration is the amount of time it takes you to take your racket back to your follow through. If it takes you longer to get your racket through to the other side, then your ball is going to accelerate slower. If you get your racket back and you accelerate fast, then your ball is going to go faster through the air. By the ball going faster through the air, it's going to cause more damage. It's going to give your opponent less time to react, and it's going to give you the advantage of being able to make more decisions when your opponent's being rushed. So they're just playing on defense or reacting to what you're doing versus you being on offense and dictating play, which is a much better strategy when you're playing. Also, for maximum acceleration, you can work on these exercises. One really good exercise is taking your racket back and swinging in the air and listening to how fast your racket swings. If you hear the wind go faster through the air, your racket go faster through the air, and you hear the wind hum, you're going to notice one sound is completely different than the other. When you slow down and you swing at one speed versus another, you're going to hear the racket go much faster. You're going to hear the sound of your racket is going to be shorter, and it's going to be a little bit quieter. The slow swing, it's nice and slow. Faster swing, it's going to allow you to generate more acceleration. To work on acceleration, one great exercise to do is taking your racket back and doing accelerations. You're going to count to 10. You're going to accelerate 10 times. Each time you accelerate, I want you to bring your knees down, your racket back, and finish all the way through to your follow through. So you're going to bring your racket back, and we're going to go 1. Use your left hand to keep it out to help you balance yourself and to help you turn more to generate more acceleration. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, I did those 10 accelerations with a closed stance position. But you can do an open stance as well by putting your feet apart and then doing the same thing. I like to work on both. I actually like to do alternating. One closed, one open, one closed, one open. This allows you to prepare for any type of shot
and be more dynamic with your feet when the ball comes. So we're going to stand with an open stance, and we're going to do the same thing 5 times. 1, still left hand out. 2, for a lefty, right hand out. 3, 4, 5. You'll also notice, where do I set up my racket? I usually try to set up my racket in a relaxed position where I can start a maximum acceleration swing. If your wrist is tilting down, it's going to be much harder to accelerate because your hand is in a position where gravity's already pulled you down. You want to start in a position where gravity allows you to start your swing. So gravity helps you to accelerate a little bit more. When should you hit topspin? When should you hit side spin? When should you hit flat? When should you hit with some spin? Those are all very important questions. A lot of people, they never understand exactly what they need to do with each ball. But I'm going to tell you right now. Let's start with low balls. For low balls, we know the net is going to block some of the clearance. So if you hit the ball nice and flat across the court, your chances of hitting the net is going to happen often. You're going to hit the net a lot. So what do you want to do on low balls? On low balls, you want to hit with topspin by coming under the ball and brushing up and over the ball and then accelerating through with your wrist. Or with side spin. You want to make sure you come around the ball on the side of the ball and then still finish with topspin, but the ball is going to turn a little bit in the court and in the air, which will give you some clearance, and it'll give you a little bit of a loop when you need to keep the ball in the court, or pass somebody on a passing shot. And also, if you need to on those low balls, then you can switch to a continental grip and change it up to a slice or a drop shot. Mid-height balls, when it's waist high, you want to make sure that any balls that you hit are going to be clearing the net, but you're still being offensive. For the low ball, topspin keeps you offensive. For the mid-height, you can add some flat balls, knowing that your chances of hitting the net are going to be much higher. So you want to make sure that you hit with some topspin and sometimes with some flat shots. For higher balls, you want to make sure that you take 3 different approaches. Number 1, you hit the ball a little bit flatter. You hit the ball with some spin, but not a lot of spin, because you want to still stay on offense. You want to take advantage of the ball being high and clearing the net so you can hit down into the court. And the last one is hitting a little bit of side spin by tilting your racket by standing up, and you're actually going to hit the ball on the side of the ball, and you're still going to finish across your shoulder, but the ball is going to take a little bit of a side bounce and it's going to spin away. What this is going to do is it's going to help you put a little bit of spin, so it's going to give you some control. It's going to keep you on offense because you're still hitting from high to low into the court, so the ball's still coming down, but because you hit a little bit on the ball and with your wrist, turn as you hit, turn a little bit, not a lot, just turn a little bit and finish to your shoulder. The ball is going to go through the court, but once it goes through the court, it's still going to spin away from your opponent. And that's an important shot to have. You're going to see a lot of players like Del Potro, Federer, and Nadal, they use that consistently on those high balls. That's why you see those short balls bounce angled, and then you turn even more away. And it's because of that angle that they create on that ball and a little bit of side spin. So the ball bounces and turns away. Now that's the proper approach for the high, mid-height, and low balls on the forehand side. One of my favorite drills to work on is speed forehands. How do you practice speed forehands? Well, you're going to have either your coach or yourself just self-feed, and when they feed you the ball, they have to feed the ball non-stop with no break, so you don't have much time to set up or prepare. When you do it for yourself, you could just take balls or have the basket next to you, and you can take the ball and drop and swing, drop and swing. What this is going to do is it's going to actually make your swing more natural, because you'll have less time to think, less time to actually add more mistakes or glitches into your swing. Make sure that you always follow through. Make sure you stay down and you keep your feet on the floor when you do this. So let's say, for example, you're going to set up, you have your basket next to you, you're going to take some balls, you're going to bounce, swing, bounce, swing, bounce, swing, bounce, swing. When it's actually fed by somebody else, you're going to notice you're going to have to set up your feet a little bit more. You're going to have to get in a better position. That's actually better, because then you're going to be more prepared for a real ball when the ball comes. This is going to give you a lot of timing. It's going to give you better reaction. It's going to give you better footwork, and it's going to help you prepare for an opponent that actually plays very fast and requires that you set up quickly. This is one of my favorite drills. You should really work on this a lot. one great combination you can have in tennis is being able to have a very good first serve or second serve and having a nice, powerful forehand to start the point. That's a two-hit combo, serve, forehand. How would that look? Well, for a two-hit combo, you want to make sure you set up in a position where you're going to be able to run around the backhand if it comes to your backhand, or in the middle if it comes to the middle, and to the forehand. So you don't want to stand all the way down the line on your serve. You want to stand a little bit closer to the center of the court. And after you serve, you want to make sure that when you make impact, you plant your feet on the floor so you can quickly turn to the backhand, to the middle, to the forehand, or step into the court if the ball is nice and short. So you want to be ready for all positions when the ball comes. Now, when you do the same thing on the ad side, you also want to stand closer to the line. As soon as you serve, try to make sure that after you make an impact, you always try to step into the court, because you immediately create balance, and by stepping in, your serve will go a little bit faster with a little more punch on it, and then plant those feet on the floor. As soon as you plant, watch where the ball's coming. Is your opponent returning the ball soft, slow, high, to the sides? Watch where it's coming so that you can quickly adapt to whatever's coming and still stay on offense. The majority of the time when people serve, your opponent will hit the ball short. Ball lands short. So you never ever want to serve after you serve and fall back, because a lot of times you're going to be on the run trying to reach the ball going forward. When you hit, always step into the court, be ready, and be ready to step into the court so you can take advantage of that forehand and run into the net, or hit that back, hit to their backhand, and get into the right position on the court so you can be punching, and your opponent can be taking, and you're set up for a good position to win the point at the end. Another great two-hit combo that you can have is whenever you get a short ball, hitting a forehand and coming into the net and finishing with a volley. May it be a forehand or a backhand volley, it doesn't matter, either one. The main thing is, get over it, don't fear coming into the net. If you hit a good enough forehand, make sure you go forward. When you go forward with your forehand is going to be much more effective. But if you fear coming into the net and you hit that forehand and you kind of stutter as you're coming in and then you kind of fall back, you're going to notice your balance is still only going to be on your back foot. So you're not going to hit a stronger forehand, you're not going to be as balanced, and you're not going to get as much spin on the ball. So what you want to do is you want to have that mentality of, I'm hitting and I'm coming into the net no matter what. Why is that? Well, because it's going to make your forehand more confident, so there's going to be less wrinkles in your swings, there's going to be less stuttering as you step into the court. You're not going to hit and kind of second guess yourself if you're coming in or not. You're going to come in and you're going to be more confident about it because you know you have to volley. Second thing, when you come up after you hit that forehand and you come into the net to volley, make sure your hands are up and out in front. Don't come into the net with your hands down, because most of the balls are going to be covered by the net on the low balls. Only a few will actually come low enough where you're going to be in a position to actually hit the ball low. Put your hands up. That way you'll be able to cover the second half of the net. You're going to be able to keep your hands up for mid-height and for high volleys. Make sure your hands are out in front as well, not just up. So you want to extend. In this case, you do want to fully extend those elbows. If there's a little bit of a bend over here, perfect. But the straighter, the better. The more locked in, the worse, because then you can't take advantage of sometimes guessing wrong where it's going. But if your arms are straight out and you guess wrong, oh, it came to the forehand, you can still bend in and catch it in time. But if you start with your elbows bent in, then there is nowhere to run or fall back to. So you want to make sure you extend your arms out. So on the forehand, be confident. Hit that forehand, come in, put your hands out in front and finish those volleys. The next two-hit combo I want to talk about is your forehand coming in forward and your opponent doesn't give you a volley. They give you an overhead, or they just pop it up and you have an opportunity for an overhead. What do you want to do in this situation? Do you want to let the ball come down? Do you want to try to volley it, or do you hit an overhead? Well, that's a good question. If you can lift your left arm up and the ball is still up and above you, then you should hit an overhead. If you lift your arm up and the ball is below your left hand, then you should probably hit a volley, a swinging volley, or let the ball bounce and hit another forehand and stay in control of that point. In this case, we're going to work on hitting a forehand and then an overhead. So how do we do this? You're gonna catch that short ball. As soon as you catch that short ball, you're gonna step into the court. As soon as you see that overhead, instead of staying still and trying to stutter back or shuffle back with both feet together, I want you to immediately turn your feet, your shoulders sideways. Second, I want you to try to determine how far the ball is from the net. Do you need to step into the court? Do you need to step away from the court? When moving forward and back, try to make sure you either shuffle, crossing your legs, or sideways, but never ever face the net, because facing the net will only make you slower, because you won't have your arms ready and your hands ready, and you want to have this half of your body always ready on overhead. So rack it up, left arm up, and as the ball's coming, you want to make sure you shuffle your feet around the ball, and if you need to jump, you jump. If you need to step into the net, you step into the net. If you fear finishing those points with the overhead, work on your overhead. Don't fear hitting overheads. It's a very important shot. You want to make sure you show your opponent that if you hit that forehand and you come into the net, the point's going to end and you're going to be in control of that point. But if you're letting that ball bounce, people aren't going to be afraid of just popping the ball up in the middle of the point. And then you're going to be back on defense and again trying to force your forehand to do something that it won't be natural for you to do. So you want to let your forehand do its part and then the remainder of your strokes do the other part. Hitting on the rise. What's hitting on the rise? And why is it such a common term and so popular out there? Hitting on the rise basically means that when you're going to make impact with the ball, as soon as the ball is making impact on the floor, you're already swinging, so you're going to hit the ball on the way up, and that's called hitting the ball on the rise. When the ball bounces, goes all the way up, and then starts going all the way down, that's on the lower half of the bounce. So that's gonna mean the ball is already called what I call a dead ball, which means it doesn't have any additional increment of power for you to generate. When the ball's on the rise and your opponent hits the ball, if the ball's on the rise, it's gonna have maybe 1 or 2 miles per hour that you can add on to instead of going to 0 miles per hour. Or having a ball that's at 0.0 where the ball bounces, goes all the way up and it is at 0.0 and stays still, and then you make impact. That's still better than hitting the ball on the lower side of the swing. If you have to hit it on the lower part of the bounce, that's perfectly fine. But if you can, it's always better to hit it on the rise. Now, hitting on the rise is very, very useful when you're able to keep your opponent on the run and when you can hit the ball with a Western grip or with some topspin. Why is this? Because when you hit the ball on the rise and the ball bounces and is on the way up, if you hit on the low part of the strings, the ball will tend to go all the way up. So you want to make sure you keep your racket straight or a little bit tilted so that when the ball bounces, the ball actually remains going straight. For people who have a Western or continental grip on impact, you can still do it perfectly fine. You just got to try to make sure you keep your racket straight on impact so the ball doesn't pop up on you. As soon as the ball bounces and you're hitting on the rise, you want to make sure you keep your body down and low so that you can keep the ball going straight. A good way to work on this is simply going to a wall and staying down and hitting it softly and gently and staying nice and close with the wall and bouncing it. As soon as it bounces off the wall and on the floor, you bounce it right back. Bounce it right back, bounce it right back, bounce it right back. You're going to notice this is going to give you a pulse. Pulse is very important in tennis because you're going to hear the ba-boom, 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 just like your heart beats. Every time it bounces and you catch it on the rise, you're going to notice you're going to feel more comfortable. You're going to start finding the center of the strings. When you find the center of the strings, you'll be able to do this in your matches much easier. Sometimes you're forced to do it. Sometimes you'll return a serve and you're going to be standing in the middle of the court or three quarters into the court, and you're going to see the ball coming straight at your feet and you're going to be forced to hit on the rise. In that case, it's always good to practice it beforehand on the wall or with your practice partner. When the ball's coming, step into the ball. Don't wait for the ball to come to you. That way you can get that ball on the rise and swing right through it. By doing this, you'll be able to learn how to direct the ball down the line, cross court, deep, harder, faster, with some spin. This will only happen with practice, so you need to repeat and improve it as you go. Another great drill I want you to work on, this is going to really help you get down on your forehand. I want you to work on when you see your opponent's about to make contact with the ball or when your coach is about to feed the ball, you're going to touch the ground with the left hand by bringing your legs down and your hips and your glutes down, not your back. Don't hurt your back. So you're going to touch the ground, and then when the ball is coming, you're going to make contact with the ball so that you're pushing up and go forward as you hit. So it's gonna look like this. You're gonna touch the floor, the ball's gonna bounce, and you're gonna go forward. By going forward, you're actually transferring your body weight and forcing your feet to tilt into the ball instead of standing up as you hit. Standing up will make the ball go up. You want the ball to go forward and have enough forward thrust so the ball stays down into the court. When you do this drill, at the beginning you might feel your legs get tired quickly. So if you can't do more than 5, take a break, do another 5. If you can go up to 10, do 10 and then take another break until you get better and better at it. You're gonna really see your forehand improve the more and more you do it. Sometimes just as a regular drill or as a practice that you can have without having a coach, without having a ball, is simply touching the ground, coming up and accelerating. Touching the ground, coming up and accelerating. Touching the ground, coming up and accelerating. Do that 10, 15, 20 times. You'll feel the burn in your legs, but then you'll feel the difference in your forehand. And that's the goal. I want to see that forehand improving. Now let's go over 5 common mistakes people make and how to fix them. Number 1, a lot of people think that every time they hit their forehand they need to jump to generate more power. Now, while it might be fine to do this when the ball comes nice and high or the ball's behind you and you're trying to shuffle back and you're trying to jump back into the court, the right way to do it, or the right way to generate more power, is by taking your racket back and bending your knees and falling forward. So your balance transfer goes forward instead of upwards. How's this going to benefit you? When you fall forward, you're going to be able to stay balanced, you're going to be able to recover quicker. So if you fall forward, you're going to be able to run for a drop shot, run back, run around your backhand if you have to. But if you're in the air, by the time you land, you're reacting to whatever your opponent's doing or giving you, and then you might not be there on time to get to that next ball. So going forward is the key. Number 2, second common mistake people make is not following through because of the fear of hitting the ball out. Instead of fearing the ball going out, another much better approach should be slowing your racket head speed to make the ball slow down in the air. Or number 2, by simply adding a little bit of spin on the ball, by making that, which will make the ball drop into the court and it'll keep it down and away from going out, which is what you're worried about. Common mistake number 3. There's a lot of people that want to slap the forehand. They just want to slap it and generate power off the slap. While using your wrist is good and accelerating is important, slapping the ball is only going to make you sloppier. The ball is going to spray out everywhere. You're not going to be consistent. So your goal should be, instead of slapping, it should be to actually accelerate on point of contact. And if you can do it by adding a little bit of spin, then it won't feel like slapping, it'll feel like accelerating. And that's a much better way to approach the forehand. Number 3, third most common mistake on the forehand is a lot of people, they set up in one position every time for every forehand. May it be only closed stance sometimes, and for some people only open stance. Instead of doing this, try to focus on approaching balls in which you need to go forward, you need to set up closed stance. And balls in which you need to move to the side, you should set up open stance. Balls in which you run around the backhand can be sometimes closed stance, sometimes open stance, whatever makes you feel comfortable in that position. Another good way to approach this would be by working on an exercise which is doing forehand accelerations with a closed stance and then with an open stance. Same thing again, closed stance, open stance. After you do this 20 or 30 times, your body will learn to set up your feet correctly. You'll be able to coordinate your feet the way you need to be able to hit the best forehand possible. Number 5, one of the most common mistakes that a lot of people make on their forehands is they all try to hold the racket a little bit more like they're choking the racket like this, instead of tilting the racket and making it a part of your arm. Try to make sure that when you hit a forehand, you stay loose, you stay relaxed. On the forehand, you shouldn't be choking the racket because it's much harder to use your wrist for the remainder of the swing, and you're gonna keep your elbows in because of this, because you're trying to muscle the ball a little bit too much. So try to get that arm to extend out by holding the racket in a tilting position instead of an L position. Stay away from the L position. L position is good for volleys, it's good for slice, it's good for drop shots, but for forehands, you want to make sure you extend that arm, tilt that hand on the grip so that you can generate a little bit more of a natural swing, a more flowing motion as you hit.